Hello and welcome to the View with Hasan Ali. Politics in cricket is nothing new, yet in recent weeks the game itself has been forced into the background as geopolitical tensions in South Asia have taken center stage. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is set to take a final call on whether Pakistan will play its highly anticipated World T20 match against India after fresh pressure from the ICC. Pakistan has accused the ICC of double standards in the way it removed Bangladesh from the tournament after the latter requested that its matches be played outside of India. As tensions rise, there are growing concerns that politics is beginning to overshadow the spirit of cricket. Is this true? And can anything be done about it? To discuss this, we're joined by the author and journalist Peter Oborne, as well as writing on British politics and global affairs. He's the author of two books on cricket, Basil d'Oliveira, Cricket and Controversy, and Wounded Tiger, The History of Cricket in Pakistan. Hi, Peter, how are you?
All the better for joining you. Thank you very much
for inviting
me on your show.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor for me. I'm a big fan. Peter, all of this started when IPL franchise KKR released Bangladeshi fast bowler Mustafizur Rahman from its squad under directions from the BCCI. Of course, right-wing groups had complained and had asked for him to be removed due to the current political situation, the tensions between Bangladesh and India. How do you interpret that decision?
Well, it was a terrible decision. I mean, cricket has, in general, it's best to keep cricket away from politics. There are times when that's unavoidable, as it was with South African apartheid, where it was essential that it was a great thing when cricket drove eventually South Africa out of the Committee of Cricketing Nations. But here, India has behaved very badly by kicking that Bangladeshi player out, and just as it does structurally by not allowing Pakistani players into the IPL. This is abusive, and it's understood there are tensions between India and Pakistan, and also with Bangladesh now over the last 12 months. But that is no reason to behave in the way India has. It's sectarian, really.
Okay. Do you think when Bangladesh asked to be allowed to play in a different country, given that Sri Lanka is already hosting a couple of groups in this World Cup, that they should have been allowed to do that, that some sort of dispensation ought to have been made?
Well, there's two answers to that. On principle, no, they shouldn't be able to say, I'll play here and I won't play there. On the other hand, since last year, put me right if I'm wrong, but I recall that in the Champions Trophy, India made exactly the same demand about not going to Pakistan.
Yes, they played in the UAE.
And the ICC, which seems to me to be a compromised body in some ways, went along with that. It allowed India to basically get incredible favoritism on that issue of not playing in Pakistan, and now to not allow, having given in once, it might as well give in twice. But that's two answers. Can I just make a general point here too? Because I wrote, as you mentioned, a history of cricket in Pakistan, and laced through the history of post-independence Pakistan and India is these series of political tensions, which led Pakistan not to play India for about 15 years from 1960, and then there was further periods. But the key point is that although the politicians saber rattle, when they do play, there's incredible warmth between the spectators on either side. For instance, I mean, the story of India's first cricket match in Lahore, when Pakistan opened the borders quite recently after partition and all of the bloodshed, and the way people were welcomed into the homes of people who their neighbours who had suddenly become Pakistani. It's very moving, and the same thing happened at the start of this century when India travelled up to play a series of matches against Pakistan, hosted by Sharia Khan, the foreign minister, and these all worked really well. And so what we're seeing here is the elites behaving badly. Normally the players get on very well and the spectators get on very well. But the elites, the political, turning cricket into a political football like this is terribly sad.
So what do you make of Pakistan's decision to boycott the India-Pakistan match on February the 15th? I mean, I guess the argument that's been used in Pakistan is really this is the only way we have of registering a protest. This is the most lucrative match in world cricket. And because we're seeing double standards from the ICC, and they've also accused the BCCI of bullying other countries. I mean, they're basically saying this is the only way we can register a protest. We're not going to play. You guys can lump it. I mean, what do you make of that decision?
Maybe it would have been better if Pakistan had said we're not coming at all, in solidarity with our cousins in Bangladesh. It's very interesting, isn't it, that this Bangladesh starts as a great supporter of India, and it was sponsored by India. India actually invaded East Bengal, didn't it, in 1970, East Pakistan in 1971, and a great ally of Bangladesh. And now suddenly it's the two Muslim countries are being reconciled against India, which is where Hindutva has become a real problem. So there's so many dark currents underneath this. But I think that the principal decision would have been to say, right, if you're not lying in Bangladesh, we're not coming either. And I think that would have, I think, put pressure on the ICC, which is behaving as if it is a creature of Indian cricket. The ICC is theoretically an independent body which regulates world cricket. It behaves as if, and the reasons I think this is exactly the case, is actually it's an extension of the BCCI.
Right. Well, it's currently headed by a gentleman called Jay Shah, who is the son of Amit Shah, who's India's equivalent of the Interior Minister, right? You know, he's the Home Affairs Minister. So I guess this is, I mean, it's pretty hard to see how they wouldn't use cricket as an instrument of foreign policy, I suppose, is what my take would be. But that leads us to an interesting sort of dichotomy, Peter. There have been two competing assessments about India's role as the global custodian of cricket, which they are, let's be honest. Ever since the proliferation of T20 cricket and the rise of the IPL, they have been, you know, the biggest sponsor of cricket in the world. And so the first view is that Indian money in the Indian market effectively saved cricket, right? That it turned it into a global phenomenon, that it improved livelihoods for players around the world through the IPL. Basically, that the world needs India, and cricket especially needs India to become, you know, a bigger, better game. The competing view is that Indian hegemony has essentially destroyed the game, that it's allowed India to use cricket as an instrument of foreign policy, and that it's allowed it to sort of massage its own sectarian tendencies in the way that you said at the top of the show. I mean, where do you stand on this?
Well, I think that both statements are true, which you've just made, that India has been the financial savior of global cricket and that it is messing all that up. Now, I think you can look at the, if you look at the cricket until the 1990s was run by the MCC, the International Cricket Conference, was based at Lords, and furthermore, and before that, it'd been known as the Imperial Cricket Conference. And you've got this moment of also at the ICC. I mean, you've got this moment when India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, ahead of the 1996 World Cup, isn't it, got together and suddenly seized control. It's a fantastic moment. You know, it was a post-colonial moment, and suddenly they were absolutely furious in the MCC establishment that they said no. They got together and they said you can't hold it in England. You're going to hold it in hold the World Cup in Sri Lanka, in India, and in Pakistan. It was glorious, and it was one of the most wonderful World Cups. You know, I remember Jayasuriya and Sri Lanka's team emerged. It was all fabulous. And that did change the finances of world cricket, because a financial genius, in my view, Hasan Ali, who was then ran the finances of the ICC and went on to run it all together, understood that you could package these rights and sell them at a huge amount of money to the media organizations. And suddenly money started to pour in. It's not true that it was just because of India, because obviously India has a huge market, but it was global. It was a global thing. Australia, Britain, etc., Pakistan, Bangladesh. Now, and to begin with, they distributed the money in a very creative way. It led, thanks, I think, to the vision of Mr. Mani, very largely across the world. So they suddenly got this explosion in cricket playing nations, the associate status. And we got a new test playing nations, Afghanistan, such an exciting thing. And Bangladesh emerging from quite a long period of despond. Do you realize they took a long time to get that act together? Suddenly emerging as a very exciting country which could take on the best and win. Now, that was a very positive period. What has happened in the last 10 years is that India has started to exploit the fact that it is the biggest market to enforce political decisions, to wage feuds against nations which it, for one reason or another, has a problem with. And this is very, for somebody who loves cricket and loves India and loves Pakistan and loves Sri Lanka and loves Bangladesh. I love all these countries. They're all wonderful countries. And anybody who loves cricket has to love all of those nations. This is terribly depressing. And can I just make a plea to the ICC and to the BCCI? Just kind of come down a bit, You have to have a bit of generosity of spirit,
But Peter, is it? I mean, look, the ICC is one thing, but I mean, the BCCI would have to change as well, right? Because I mean, it's pretty clear that the IPL, which is run by the BCCI, has long had a policy of excluding Pakistani players, right? And since Pakistani players can't play in the world's most competitive league, it's diminished their team's ability to compete at the international level. Now, we've just seen, a Bangladeshi player being ejected because of geopolitical tensions. Now, this diminishes the cricket of countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh. Is there a solution? Because the BCCI obviously is not beholden to the international cricket community, but it can have an effect on these countries, and a really deleterious effect.
It does, and it feels very political. I had dinner about 10 years ago, maybe a bit more, with Sharia Khan when he was running the Pakistan Cricket Board, and it was quite moving. I mean, Sharia, who had been brought up in Bhopal before World War II and learned it, he knew personally and intimately, the early Indian Test cricket players who taught him the game. And he explained to me over dinner in Lahore, it was, about how he was really trying to stretch out and reach out to the Indian authorities and couldn't get anywhere. And I think that India, I think it does need a change of heart from India, because at the moment, by excluding Pakistani players from the IPL, from what they've now up to with Bangladesh, they are starting to destroy I would say, the game of cricket at an international level. And I just hope that there are voices inside the Indian cricketing establishment who can try and speak up against this and try and make sense. Because wouldn't it be wonderful again to have an India-Pakistan Test series, and be joyful, and it would be. It's not just IPL we're talking about. It's not just ODI, and it's about reconciliation. And this is and cricket has had. If you go through the history of the game we all love, there are often moments of tension, as between England and Australia over body line, and between India and Pakistan in the 60s and 70s and beyond. But actually, when they come together again, it's a fabulous story. They call it cricketing diplomacy, don't they? And I hope that I urge India to please to come down, and I think that Pakistan would be ready to step forward. After all, Nawaz Sharif has, he's a cricket lover, quite a strong batsman. He used to turn out for the Lahore Gymkhana, didn't he? And he can play the first-class match, possibly rather inadvisedly. But he loves the game.
All right. Well. I mean, it's a religion in Pakistan, really. I mean, of course. You talk about saner voices prevailing. I mean, part of the problem is that the head of the ICC, for instance, is Jay Shah. I mean, I've already said that. Whose political links we know of. The current head of the PCB is a gentleman called Mohsen Naqvi, who's simultaneously serving as the interior minister. So I mean, the decision makers are politicians, who have other jobs that are perhaps more important to them, or other agenda that are more important to them perhaps than the game. So I just thought it was, because I'd mentioned Jay Shah's background, I thought just for balance's sake, it was important to mention that the Pakistani chairman of the PCB is also a politician. He's in the cabinet.
Certainly, and this has long been the case. That the two. I seem to remember there's a strong correlation between being head of water and power in Pakistan government and being chairman of the PCB.
Peter,
and it is good. It would be rather a splendid thing. Remember the great Pakistan early captain Khadr. He ran PCB very well, by the way, and I think that maybe we could do better, perhaps, and have the old cricketer or somebody who with formidable. Majid Khan ran PCB rather well, I seem to recollect.
Peter, one argument that I've heard, and I almost hesitate to mention it given the level of xenophobia that exists in England at the moment. I do say this, with bated breath. But, it's said that powerful cricket boards have always sort of used their financial resources to gain an advantage. It's not just India. I mean, the ECB, for example, has been accused of using its financial muscle to poach talented cricketers from poorer countries in the Commonwealth, for instance. This idea that, Jofra Archer, the West Indies could sure use a fast bowler like that, and that maybe, Irish cricket would have gone from strength to even greater heights if Owen Morgan had played for them for the best part of 15 years. What do you make of that? You understand why as someone who's brought up in England, I'm nervous actually mentioning this, right? Because there is a xenophobic environment.
No, I completely agree with you about this. In fact, I've been banging on about it for some time. So we want to have a healthy international cricketing environment. Basically, Jofra Archer, I think he played under 19 cricket for West Indies.
Yeah.
And then England come and pinch him.
Yeah.
To give you a historical analogy, the great Fazal Mahmood, though India wanted to pinch him, and if they had succeeded pinching Fazal in 1947-8, I don't know, that would have hugely weakened Pakistan cricket. Probably, and you might not have got test status until about 1980. Now, it's not just going back to the ECB, which I think is a terrible organisation. They're allowing Bethel. Bethel was under 15s in West Indies, and so what happens is the counties or the English system comes along. They nick. Bethel's it looks like being one of the great players in the next 10 years, and he's playing for England, not for the West Indies. And West Indies is suffering. You know what I mean? It's on the edge of falling out of. We've nicked Jofra Archer and Bethel, and then we beat Nepal. But why did we beat Nepal a few days ago? We beat them because we pinched a Zimbabwe player, Curran, and so there were three. And now this is rotten. You're just sucking out key core players from great country, and from countries which are growing and have emerged on the scene. And the ECB, I challenge them to, they need to explain this policy. They're taken away. They've already been identified as a really serious talent. They then go to an English public school. Somebody pays for that, and then they're launched on the English circuit. They become English, not West Indian or Zimbabwean or whatever it may be. Irish. Your point about Owen Morgan is very well taken, and of course there are precedents for this. It's all wrong.
Owen Morgan had actually played for the Irish national team, not even at junior level. He played at senior level for them. I mean, it's just that, I mean, people in India, I mean, we've accused sort of Indian cricket of using its financial muscle to kind of gain an advantage. I mean, but this is another argument that people don't like to make because then you get into like that whole you open that can of worms of like who's British and who isn't. But I wonder if one can have this discussion while at the same time sort of acknowledging that there's something about this that doesn't sit right. It seems like exploitation.
I don't have a problem with this. Graham Hick would have been fantastic if he stayed for Zimbabwe. He turned out to be a
Kevin Peterson.
Well, Peterson is an interesting and slightly different case. I don't think he should have played for England, but there are different reasons for that. I think he was a very a great player, but a very bad influence. But there's a second point I want to make about the comparison with the Indian Cricket Board. Another comparison we can make with the Indian kind of cricket establishment is actually with the English cricket establishment while the empire existed. And so the cricket was run by the MCC, from Lords, through certain grandees, and it established this racist structure of cricket, which is worse than what the Indians are doing, badly what the Indians are doing. So the Imperial Cricket Conference is formed before World War I, largely at the instigation of the landlords, Rhodes and Co. The people who are making a fortune out of South African gold and diamonds, and they were racists. They could not allow any black or Asian player anywhere near the national team. They wanted to send the native South Africans, the people who the country actually belonged to, down the mines. And of course, the MCC went along with this, created a tripartite structure with Australia, which itself was genocidal. It's worth remembering that. But also South Africa, which was racially divided. And South Africa was allowed in to join this English Australian sort of combo. And allowed to say who they did or didn't play. So South Africa could say, we're not going to play when India joined in 1926, the Committee of Test Playing Nations, as did the West Indies. South Africa was allowed to say, no, we're not going to play them. In fact, it was given a double vote. And so this, although I'm very critical of India, it is not as disgraceful as the situation when the MCC was running cricket in the 1920s and 30s. But I think it's a very telling comparison. And I hope that India will understand that and come to realize that because I think the West Indies, you're destroying the game if you don't allow it, if you turn it into a sectarian sport or a racist sport. One of the wonders of the last 30 years is we got Rainbow South Africa back, and Mandela South Africa came back into this great sport of ours, and that was a wonderful thing. But we're now seeing it breaking apart again.
Yeah. All right. Just while I have you here, is Keir Starmer toast?
It's an interesting question. He has shown gross misjudgments. I mean, I don't know how. It's not just the matter of sending Peter Mandelson to the White House. It's a great pity that the Starmer government has chosen to govern in this factional. Rather, it's governed itself, oddly enough, rather in the way that the Indian government governs the BCCI. I mean, it's gone for narrow wins. It's rewarded its cronies.
Yeah. Crony.
Yeah.
It's interesting how we ended up making that connection. I wasn't expecting it myself, but something about this seems final to me, Peter. I'm not sitting there, but I just wanted to get your idea on the pulse. I mean, he can't survive this, can he? Or can he?
He can survive. I think that Labour. It's very difficult to dislodge particularly a Labour Prime Minister or Labour leader. When Jeremy Corbyn, the much maligned Jeremy Corbyn, was Labour leader, 180 of the 220 MPs wanted to get rid of him, and he just said, "Get lost. I'm staying put." The same thing happened with Gordon Brown in 2009-10, when there was a right-wing faction wanted to dislodge him, and cabinet ministers resigned, and the press was just Gordon's back. I'm staying. And the mechanism for dislodging Starmer is any Labour leader is much more difficult than the mechanism for getting rid of Tory leaders who used to come and go like London buses. Do you remember? And Starmer has to be convinced really to go, and I'm guessing that he will try and stay. I don't know when, that it will be quite difficult to dislodge him. Mind you, the loss of Morgan McSweeney is his sort of controller. Is a very damaging moment, and as we're talking, actually, another senior part of the Downing Street team, Tim Allen, has gone.
Well, I guess we'll have to have you on.
If a Starmer to go against his will, we'll have to have a large number of resignations from the cabinet. And I don't know whether they will do that, or the alternative is that Starmer sort of says, "Oh well, I'm going," and I guess he won't do that.
Well, we'll have you on. We'll have you on to discuss all of that too at some point. Thanks so much for your time, Peter. Thanks.
Great fun to come on. Thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Very interesting.